So every year, the brightest minds in artificial intelligence all get together for what's basically the AI Olympics. It's called NeurIPS, and this is where the future of technology really gets hashed out, debated, and unveiled. But this year, the big story isn't just about some cool new tech. It's about a new world order.
Let's just kick things off with a number that honestly, it kind of stopped us in our tracks. 90%. Now, right away, you're probably thinking 90% of what?
Well, that's the share of all the top-tier, cutting-edge research papers accepted at NeurIPS this year. That came from just 2 countries. 2. That's a near total lock on the entire field.
So that leads to the big questions, right? Who are these 2 titans? And more importantly, what does this intense head-to-head competition actually mean for the rest of us in our future?
Okay, first up, let's get right to it. Let's look at the leaderboard and see who these 2 players dominating the game really are.
And there you have it, the United States and China. Look at how close this is. Out of thousands and thousands of submissions, the US got about 2,450 papers accepted. China was right on their heels with 2,370. The gap is tiny. This isn't just a competition. It's a nail-biter, a real photo finish.
And when you zoom out, you really see the scale of this thing. 90% of the world's most important, most advanced AI research is coming from just these 2 countries. That leaves the entire rest of the world, Europe, India, Japan, everyone, scrambling for that little 10% slice of the pie.
But here's where it gets really interesting. They are not winning in the same way. Not at all. In the US, the innovation is being driven by these massive corporate powerhouses, Google DeepMind, Meta. But in China, it's a totally different story. The big players are elite universities like Tsinghua and huge state-backed organizations. So we've got 2 titans for sure, but they're following 2 completely different playbooks.
All right, so we've seen the leaderboard. We know who's on top. But how are they winning? Let's dive into the gold medal plays, the actual award-winning papers that are pushing the whole field forward.
So, one of the biggest prizes, a Best Paper Award, went to a team from China's tech giant, Alibaba. They came up with something called gated attention. The easiest way to think about it is like a smarter focus filter for an AI. It helps it pay attention to what's actually important without getting distracted by all the noise.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The review committee, the judges, they called it a simple modification that brings systematic improvement. And in the world of AI, that's the holy grail, right? A simple tweak that gives you a huge, reliable boost.
So here's the quick and dirty on how it works. The problem was that these big AI models would sometimes just lose focus on long tasks. They call it an attention sink. The solution from the Alibaba team was genius in its simplicity. Just add a little gate to the AI's attention system. And the result? A massive 5 to 10% jump in performance. The models are just more stable and way more powerful.
Now for another Best Paper winner. This one came from a joint US-China team. And they uncovered something fascinating and honestly a little unsettling. They're calling it the artificial hive mind. It's this stunning discovery that different AI models are all starting to think alike.
Basically, the research shows that because these AIs are all trained on similar giant piles of data from the internet, their answers and outputs are becoming more and more the same. And this is a huge deal for AI safety. Just imagine, if every major AI model in the world developed the exact same blind spot or the same bias, a single hidden flaw could ripple through the whole system.
Now, it's not all about what's brand new. NeurIPS also gives out this incredible award called the Test of Time Award. It recognizes a paper from a decade ago that just fundamentally changed everything.
And this year, the winner was Faster RCN. It was a game-changing paper co-authored by Chinese scholars way back in 2015. Now, RCN is a mouthful. It stands for Region-Based Convolutional Neural Network. But what it did was revolutionary. It made it possible for computers to detect objects and images in real time. 10 years and more than 10,000 citations later, it's the bedrock for so much of the computer vision we all use every single day.
Okay, so we've seen what they're building. We've looked at the gold medal research. But now, let's decode how they're doing it. Let's really dig into the strategic playbooks that are driving these 2 countries to the top.
So you can see the contrast here, right? The US model is all about industry-led innovation from corporate labs, and it's an absolute magnet for the best talent from all over the world. China's approach, on the other hand, is built on a unified national strategy, this tight collaboration between top universities and government goals. But maybe the most jaw-dropping stat on this whole chart is the patents. China now holds nearly 70% of all global AI patents.
It's just two completely different paths to AI supremacy.
So what does this all mean for the future? Where is this high-stakes game going? Let's zoom out one last time and try to figure out what happens next.
Well, experts see a few ways this could play out. One is this idea of a dual-track AI world, where we end up with two separate, competing ecosystems, one American-led, one Chinese-led. That creates a big risk of what people are calling technological decoupling, where innovation gets siloed. But on the flip side, this intense competition could open up opportunities for smaller, really agile countries to specialize and find their niche. And woven through all of this, as we saw with the artificial hive mind paper, is this growing, urgent need to focus on AI safety and ethics, when so much power is concentrated.
So at the end of the day, as these two superpowers race further and further ahead, we're left with this huge question. Is their competition going to create a rising tide that lifts all boats and builds a better future for everybody? Or are we watching the blueprint for a new, technologically divided world being drawn up right before our eyes? That is the question that NeurIPS 2025 has put squarely on the table.